Mark, welcome today.
Thanks
for making the time, it's appreciated. Mark Julian Reed, the son of an entrepreneur and the son of an orthodontist. You have got great teeth, I have to tell you that much. Born in 1966.
Actually, I have terrible teeth, but anyway, that's
pretty good to me. And obviously brought up in Surrey. You studied an MA in economics at Cambridge at the same time, actually, as Matt Britton, who's coming onto this stage next. He's obviously at Google. And I understand got a better level in your degree than a Mr. Martin Sorrell. But it was after your scholarship to Harvard, you made a decision in 1989 to write a letter to WPP, which actually got you your first job in the industry at the age of 22. You joined Farm Street as a corporate development executive just as WPP was buying Ogilvy and Mather. You took yourself off to INSEAD and you added an MBA to your armoury, and then you joined Booz in 1995 to be a principal in the media and entertainment practice. In 1999, the call of the wild comes, and as an entrepreneur yourself, you are the joint CEO and co-founder of Web Rewards. A successful adventure, you successfully sell it to Bertelsmann, and in 2002, you return to WPP. You've held multiple leadership positions across the company, including 9 years executive director of the PLC, and you're absolutely known as a digital heartbeat. All the stream possible various businesses that you led, and high accolades for all of those things. In 2015, you were appointed global CEO of Wonderman, and you take what was then known as a CRM agency to become the jewel in the crown of WPP. On the departure of Sorrell in April 2018, you were temporarily named joint COO, and the 3rd of September you were appointed the global CEO of the group. Now, Mark, I spent the weekend talking to clients, some of your CEOs and some of the media owners that are working with you day to day, and here are some of the things that they said, just to kick us off. There is a lot of goodwill. It's like a school report, isn't it? I will. There is a lot of goodwill for Mark to succeed, and much of that is because he treated everyone well on his way up. He listens more and speaks less, and he listens very intently. He wants to hear all the voices in the room. He gathers the data points, and then he's pretty decisive. He is prepared to change his mind if the reasoning and the data are good. He is genuinely trying to humanise WPP and give it a heart. He appreciates business is now more complicated, and the areas of our business that we have conflict, but there is trust between us, so we know that we can work it through. He's a modern leader. He's private, but he is listening. He has been unfairly bashed. He has a colossal job to do, and the journey of transformation is about doing the hard yards. He is letting the organisation breathe, and the team are starting to see his vision. He has a very clear value exchange between us as clients and WPP, and the need to be explicit and transparent. He appreciates great content, and strong creative is more important than just technology alone. He meets us as clients all the time. He meets future talent that he's got his eye on all the time. How much of that makes you happy to hear?
Oh, I mean, well, all should do our PR for us. All of it, really. I mean, yeah. Where are we going to go from here? My wife laughed at me when she said, "You're being interviewed by a psychotherapist. What on earth have you agreed to?" And I said, "I hadn't actually worked that out yet, so we'll see where we go."
Well, there's a reason for it, Mark. I think the singular thing that people also said was that they respect the fact that you're a very private person. And I know as a headhunter as well, a lot of people are very interested in what you're doing in the network, but are not wholly sure what you're like. As my coach would say, what's the shoes off Mark Reed really like? So I wondered if we could go back a little bit to the beginning to think about early life for you. So when you were doing your O-levels in, I don't know, 1984, what could have been the plan? What could have happened instead?
I don't know. I mean, I think I always wanted to run my own business, to be honest, and I'm sort of not quite running my own business now, if you like, but I think that's what I always wanted to do. And which is, I think, why when I left university, I wrote to Martin rather than, you know, when I was leaving university in 1988, 89, everyone wanted to go and work at Goldman Sachs, basically. It was like the pinnacle, you know, the sort of investment banking careers was the pinnacle of what people wanted to do, and I really didn't want to do that. Or go and work at McKinsey, I didn't want to do that either. And I ended up as a consultant for a while, which was like the most thankless task I've ever done in my life. Sort of 4 years stuck in the office, they work you so hard, you don't actually have time to think about doing anything else. Yeah. So, yeah, I think sort of in a way I've ended up where, you know, not quite exactly where I thought I would, but sort of in a way where I thought I would do.
Okay. And along that way, would you class yourself as competitive?
I guess I must be, yes.
Do you have siblings?
I have a younger brother, yeah.
Okay. And has he done as well as you?
Well, yes, I think so, in his own way.
What does he do?
He runs his own business as well, actually. My father was, you know, started a company, and I think kind of in a way some of that rubs off on us as it would do, with anybody, if you like.
Now, noticing that obviously you took your degree in economics, then you go to Harvard, then you go to INSEAD. Has education always been important to you?
No, I think it was always a way of sort of prevarication and not really making a real decision. So you kind of you go off and do something for a couple of years that feels worthwhile, rather than anything else. I think working in a company, frankly, is the best MBA you can ever really do. So, it's not. I've got a lot of very close friends from being at INSEAD, but I wouldn't say, you learn certain things, but you really learn things. I think you learn things on the job in all cases.
So, no greatest lessons from those different parts of your education? Anything that you particularly carry forward?
Well, I think probably basics in accounting theory and corporate finance, and the two classes actually at business school that you sort of think at the time were a bit of a waste of time, then you realise later important. One is everything to do with organisational behaviour, and then you run a company, you realise actually a company is just about organisational behaviour. And the other was you had this course in political economy, which none of us at the time could really work out why we were doing, and then you live in the world of like the growth of China and Brexit, and you realise actually when you're running a company, a lot of the decisions you make about how you allocate capital across countries and how you think about long-term trends and how the business is going to grow in 5 or 10 years. And when you're at business school, you kind of wonder why. Well, certainly we all wondered why we were being taught that. I wanted to get to the next corporate finance class or the next marketing class, but suddenly you realise that the two things, if you're running a company, is communication. Do the people in your organisation understand what you're trying to do with the business? And then the bigger questions about, are you positioning the business to succeed over the next 5 to 10 years, as well as dealing with what you need to do within the next sort of quarter, if you like.
Absolutely. Now, talking of business, clearly a good 2 years before you took over as global CEO, the share price was at £19 and the market cap was about 24 billion, so huge numbers. But for a good 4 quarters before you took over, the decline began to come, not just for your network, but actually for other networks too. You've talked about structural change required rather than structural decline, and the analysts I spoke to this weekend were very much in chime with that, which was the industry is having to really relook at how it reorganises itself. Talk to me a bit more about what you mean by structural change.
Well, I think that us and all of our direct competitors have faced their challenges over the last 2 to 3 years, and some people have done. Some companies clearly have weathered the storm better than others. I think that our clients are being disrupted and we're being disrupted. I said before, I think the pace at which consumers are adopting technology is faster than big companies can adopt it. In the old days, a company would introduce a piece of technology and we'd all go, a new television set or I remember flights went ticketless, or technology came to us from companies. Today, most big companies are scrambling to keep up with the pace at which consumers are adopting technology. So I think that sort of disruption has impacted us, and our clients. So I think what we're really trying to do is sort of get ahead of that over the next 2 to 3 years, if you like.
And there has been some discussion that the sheer size of the group historically may have slowed that down, even though you were at the time very much leading the digital
I don't think it's a size issue. I mean, Accenture's got 400,000 people. I think it was a complexity issue rather than a size issue that made it hard for us to respond. We were structured in a very disaggregated way. And when trends go across the business, it's harder for a company that's structured in as many different parts as WPP or anyone to adopt. There's some things we want people to do locally, and there's some things that are better to do, I think across the company. So I think that's really the issue, not the size of the business on its own, if you like.
So on complexity, we'll come on to mergers in a second, but obviously you've now talked a lot about a creative transformation business and company. Tell us what you mean a bit more about that.
So I think, the word transformation is not the most beautiful word, if you like, but we said we want to be a creative transformation company. So creative talks to what's, I think, in WPP's DNA and the DNA of our agencies. And by the way, I'm a believer in the WPP brand and the brands inside the organisation. Just maybe not 400 or 500 of them, but, I do believe that we have to have strong brands inside WPP. So we're a creative organisation. I think we're in the business of transformation. I think that's what clients want. And transformation talks to data and technology and process and organisation. And I think we should be a company and not a group, i.e. able to work together. So I think setting out a vision of a creative transformation company and what we should do if we're that kind of felt like, bringing clarity to where we're going in the future.
So I saw in the results that you talked about putting sort of £15 million extra behind the sort of talent budget for creativity, but then some individuals have said actually the proportion of people that are creative, purely creative in the organisation is probably not high enough at the moment. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think we want to invest more in creative. I don't know that it's about the number of people, but I think that we want to be, we want WPP to be a creative destination. I mean, I was watching a film at the weekend, and the DreamWorks logo came up at the beginning, and I thought, if you look at the word DreamWorks, you think that's a creative organisation, and I would like, when the WPP logo goes up, people to have the same kind of visceral reaction, to think actually WPP is a organisation staffed with brilliant creative people that can help me transform my business, people that have ideas, understand where culture is going, and the definition of creative is changing. I don't think it's true that everyone in the organisation is creative. I think that's a fallacy. I think everyone in the organisation has to help deliver creativity in a different way, right? And I think the definition of creative is much broader than it used to be. One of the things I've said is that we can be too New York-centric in a US sense, or too British-centric in a British sense. A lot of the way the way the world is changing, comes from, I don't know, Miami or LA or Portland or, Korea or esports. There's many. We live in a very different world from the old sort of advertising creative bubble. So I think that's what I mean by creative. And I come back to, is £50 million enough? I think it's a start, but I think it's just a reflection of what we spend overall on creative, and making sure we have the very best creative talent inside the group. And if you are someone that wants to succeed creatively, the instinctive reaction is, well, I'd like to go and work at WPP because they can do that.
I wanted to ask you that. Why do you think people now might be more willing to come to WPP? What can you offer them from a talent perspective?
Well, I think that we want to be an organisation that will help them do better work. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't just click your fingers and make it happen. But I think people should believe that we're committed to it and committed to help them succeed. John Hegarty made a comment about holding companies and how when fashion companies buy a brand, they hire a new creative director. And I don't think that's necessarily the one thing that you need to do, but I do think that the brands that we have, Ogilvy, AKQA, Wunderman Thompson, VMO1, Earl Grey, can be, and there are others, but those are the key sort of our largest networks, should be seen as really strong destinations for creative talent. Enabled, by the way, by technology and data and all of that other, all of that, not to diminish the importance, but it's a and, not an either or in my mind.
I think you said at the last Investor Day, creativity is our differentiator, technology is our growth driver.
Yeah, I think
that's the way,
right,
the balance that you see of the two.
Yeah.
And so therefore, has the merger of Wunderman Thompson been an iteration of that in real time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people say, how will we know if it's successful? I think we'll know if it's successful in the short run by, do the people get on, and do the clients, see a better, better work, if you like, coming out of it. We'll know in 3 to 5 years' time, which will really be the test, can we retain, the creative DNA of J. Walter Thompson and the data and technology DNA of Wunderman.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the test of it, I think, and we won't know until then whether we've been successful or not.
I know you were proud of the 6 spots that are in the Super Bowl. What does that make you feel like as an individual to watch that, knowing it's coming out of your firm?
Yeah, I think it makes me feel proud, and that there are, so I think that it's not the only. Someone said, is the Super Bowl like yesterday's? Yes, is it the Olympics of advertising? I don't know. Maybe it is. But yeah, I think we need to sort of aspire to have more work there and celebrate that, if you like.
Mm-hmm. So on the mergers, obviously people are keen to know how many of those were planned before you landed in this role, and have you got any more planned?
So I think we were clear, in December that, the major mergers in the group have taken place, and we've sort of simplified our structure at a sort of network level. There'll be other things we do to tidy the business up, but I think in terms of sort of major changes, we wanted to get that done and out the way, relatively quickly, because it causes an intense period of speculation internally and externally that's not helpful and distracting, and it's not helpful, frankly, to people that work in our companies. So I think we wanted to be clear to people as quickly as we could sort of where things stand. So I think we can sort of definitively say there are no major things planned, and move on from there really to making them work.
Okay. The Centrica review at the moment is quite interesting, I think, for our industry, which is a client looking to potentially put everything under one roof and looking what you're doing in simplification. Yeah. Do you see more clients moving in that direction? Do you like it when a client may look at something in the round in that way?
Well, it started, if you think about with HSBC in 2004, they sort of were claimed to do the first holding company pitch. So I'm sure there were things like that before. I think clients want, I spent the first 6 months sort of between April and September. The good thing about that kind of interim phase was I had the chance to go and talk to and listen to as many of our clients as possible. They said to me, they want really fantastic creative ideas. They want to get access to all the talent inside WPP as easily as possible. They want to be simpler to navigate the group, and they want all the other things, data and technology, and it done as cheaply as possible. Thanks very much. So it's quite a long list of things, but I think the key things they wanted were creative and strength of creative ideas and simplicity of structure. And I think if you look at effectively what Centrica are asking for is they want to find a partner who can help them succeed, globally, with their sort of global ambitions over the next 3 to 5 years. And, that's a long-term decision. I mean, when you talk to most clients about how many agencies they hire, it's amazing. Some have 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 different agencies, and I think this sort of proliferation has made life more complicated. Now, I don't think we need to reduce everything to one, but I think we do need to say we have this talent and how can we make it available?
Absolutely, understood. And within that, we have to obviously talk a little bit about in-housing, because obviously it seems to be all the rage at the moment. I'm sure for Oliver it certainly is, but a sense of lots of clients beginning to speak out around it. 2 of yours, Unilever, Vodafone. I know News UK have done in-housing via you and with you for quite some time. Where do you feel about that as Mark Reed?
Well, me as CEO of WPP, I think is sort of the same thing. Look, I think that I understand clients' desire to get closer to the people that are working on their business. Personally, I think, or corporately, we think that's best achieved by working with their agency partners. I think it's hard. I think there are advantages. I think clearly there are advantages that agencies can do in terms of recruiting talent and giving them a career in the industry. Having experiences across a number of different clients and a number of different industries, investment in technology and other things. And I do worry a little bit that clients get sucked into the execution and not the strategy. So I think that we can do it. And if we're not doing a good enough job, then clients should tell us and we'll up our game, if you like. But personally, I think that we can achieve the same accomplishments extremely well in partnership with our clients.
And specifically thinking about buying and in-housing, Mark.
Yes.
Obviously, there was a time when, obviously, Group M is a hugely profitable side of your business. There was a time when scale seemed to be really winning the pitches. It appears that that's been levelled off to some degree. What's your feeling on that?
I wouldn't agree with that, to be honest. I mean, scale is expressed differently. Scale was expressed by buying volume, and now maybe it's expressed by access to data, technology scale, and buying volume. Because, for all we think about digital media, traditional media is still, if you like, we're trying to get rid of the word digital, but anyway, for all we think about digital media, traditional media is still well over half of what clients spend. And, so, I think, Group M is an extremely important part of WPP, an extremely important growth driver of the group, and, continues to perform very strongly. So, I think that actually scale matters in media as much or more than it ever has done before. I mean, the number of creative startups continues, but how many media startups have there really been in the last 10 years that have achieved any kind of scale? I mean, none, frankly, except those incubated by the holding companies. So I think that the media business is still one where where scale matters. It's just expressed in different ways.
Understood. Now for clients, Mark, again, when I talk to some of your clients, they specifically mentioned you going to visit them personally, you having a particular interest in not always micromanaging in any way, and that seems to be a huge change for the group. But the fact they feel that you're always there, how much time do you try and dedicate to actually being with your clients?
So I probably spend, I don't know, a third of my time with clients, maybe a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think particularly, coming into this role, you have to go and spend clients and see them and spend as much time with them as you can and give them, understand what they're looking for and things that we need to improve, particularly when we're trying to sort of reshape the strategy of the group. So, as much, and it's always good to spend time with clients.
Absolutely. Do you have, from a purpose, moral, ethics point of view, without naming any names, but any clients now that maybe you may choose as the global CEO to not work with because maybe they're not sustainable or maybe they're in sectors that we've discovered are no longer good for us?
I think we've set out a new purpose for WPP. Within that purpose around bringing people together to build a better future for our clients. I don't think there's anything, I think we've had a approach to taking on clients for a long time, and I think we can continue that. That's a way of answering your question.
Not really. What does that really mean?
Well, it means, we work with a large number of clients all around the world. Mm-hmm. I can't be intimately familiar with every single one of them on day one.
I guess my question is, would you take on a client, let's say for some people, if it was in the smoking area, would you feel that maybe from what we've learned over the last decade or so that maybe you wouldn't want to work with a client like that, or do you not see the world in that way?
I think our people have to be able to decide what clients they want to work on and what clients they don't want to work on, and our people should be absolutely free to make their own decisions, and clearly there are clients that we would and wouldn't work for. So that's obviously the case.
All right, thank you. Kantar seems
Yes.
to be quite popular in the press right now, for the sense that it's sort of publicly up for sale.
Yeah.
And I know they're getting back into simplification. Should that, and when that is successful, is that about investing more money back into the business, or is it about cost saving, or where are you at with what might happen with that?
So I think, the place to start there is data. And I think data is critically important to our clients and critically important for the modern marketing ecosystem. But I think that at WPP we should be judged more on what data we use in our client work than whether we own a particular piece of data or not. And once we decided that, it became clear that we could take Kantar, and WPP, by the way, will remain a significant shareholder in Kantar. We said anywhere between 25 and 40%, and really turn Kantar into the world's best data business, or the world's leading data business, which I think actually we had the opportunity to do with a financial and or strategic partner. I think that there's a lot of value that we can unlock in Kantar, and maybe emotionally I would have preferred to keep Kantar inside WPP, but rationally we've got a lot of stuff to do, and this felt like the right way of releasing the value inside Kantar. So we'll remain a shareholder, and with the funds that we get, we'll use most of it to reduce our debt and part of it to offset the sort of earnings dilution, to talk about the financials and to really invest in the business. But I think the net result is, we'll have a more streamlined and focused WPP, and a Kantar where, the management team are really focused on turning it into, a great data business.
Could be. So hopefully, we're looking at financial and strategic partnership would be what you'd prefer to happen with that business.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. Now, Mark, at the Lighthouse, we talk a lot about three different types of talent: the evolved, the exotic, and the extinct. We did a survey earlier on this year where we asked people what they thought they were, and not surprisingly, only 2% of people would regard themselves as extinct, even though we think the reality is probably more likely to be 25%. Thinking about the kinds of individuals that you want to keep in your business and the kind of individuals you want to attract to your business, what are you looking for?
So I think that...
what might be the exotic types that you might need as a sense of skill sets that you might want to be attracting to the organisation?
I think we want the people that we talked about, sort of along the themes that we talked about, really strong creative people, technologists that really understand how the world is evolving technically, can help us, build and integrate the systems that we need. I think data experts that can really understand, how to source and extract one thing we forget about data is how we can use data to extract insights. I mean, I think the best creative work comes out of a really strong insight. And can we use data as a really, really powerful source of insight? Can we use it to target messages at people at a point where the insight and where they are in the customer journey really, really matter? And can we use it to measure results? So I think those are the types of people. I think that we have said that we want to change the culture of WPP, or maybe say build a culture of WPP is maybe really the right word. Build a culture of WPP which is open and optimistic and extraordinary. So I'd like to have people who are open, optimistic, and extraordinary. Now, extraordinary is sort of a word. It can sort of mean anything really. But I think those are the values. So people that want to work in an environment like that. Our business is a client service business. So I think people that are good at listening and talking to clients, who can work in a really collaborative environment, and who really understand kind of the way the world is going and are up for the challenge of shaping that, really.
It seems that this horizontality and the hybrid is of the moment right now, and trying to find individuals that can talk very broadly across lots of different disciplines but be good enough to know when to bring in the experts. Is that where you'd see the functional leads, let's say?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge in what we're talking about. We set out an offer for WPP which is like communications, experience, commerce and technology. Someone that's running our client should be able to talk about those four things. The reality is there aren't a lot of people that can talk about those four things. So part of what we need to do is, one, look for people that can, but secondly, train and equip the client leaders of the future to have a conversation with clients about that and know when to bring people in who can, who can do that. Not sort of super salespeople, if you like, but a much more kind of consultant-like approach to working with clients.
That's what our research said. I think people that are willing to evolve, but that also means being quite senior, but willing to still learn new things, which is why I was asking about you continually sort of seem to educate yourself.
But curious people by definition, I don't know by definition curious, but want to know what's changing in the world, don't they? So I think that's sort of what you want, really.
OK. So, Mark, the analysts are on your case and the city's wanting to talk to you and you've got lots of internal work to do. So far, what's been the most joyful part in the first 6 months? What's been the toughest part for you?
I think the toughest part is just dealing with, you start on day one and you realise sort of you own the opportunity, if you like, and it's an enormous organisation with, many talented people who are looking for leadership. So I think the toughest thing is kind of just the volume of stuff that you need to get through. The things I enjoy most, pitches, winning pitches when we win them, spending time with our people as much as I can.
I've heard that you send the odd GIF when someone's having a good or a bad day, which I've been told is
Gift
very endearing.
or GIF?
GIF, G-I-F.
I don't know.
I found that very enlightening to understand that about you.
I'm quite a heavy user of WhatsApp as a kind of communications mechanism.
Nicola Mendelsohn will be thrilled.
Yes, I hadn't thought about that. I'm sure she will. It's encrypted on both ends, so no one knows what's going on in the middle, so long as both parties delete it, I guess.
And the toughest part? What happens on the toughest day?
Look, we've had our challenges. Our share price has gone up and down on various bits, and there's days when, like in any job, there are days when, it feels like there's a lot to do.
Do you check the share price when you wake up in the morning?
No, luckily.
When you go to bed at night?
No, I mean, I look at it, but I certainly don't want to be addicted to it. I think one thing in this job is, there are metrics, right? So, what we need to do at WPP is get the business growing. If the business grows, i.e. we do good work for clients and we get more business, all the other things will take care of themselves. We have plenty of accountants and finance people to manage the margins and all that stuff. So I'm really focused on having a business that does great work and grows. Everything else, I think, is sort of, not academic is not the right word, but everything else will follow from that. So, if I wanted to, if I could have a system that every day told me, are we growing or not growing, that would be what I would like. And it's hard to sort of figure out how you're making progress, because you sort of deal with, you hire really fantastic people, and then the next day you get a phone call of, you know, sadly someone's leaving. So you have to sort of balance those things. So I think the sort of the financial scorecard does become one way of, you know, really understanding how you're doing in this transformation.
You said by 2021 you would expect to be matching your rivals as far as growth, etc. Does that mean that you're kind of taking the medicine this year for
Our
GSK,
peers.
Ford and...
Our peers, not rivals. So, you know, I think...
You said you were competitive.
No, well, look, we're not going to turn the company, you know, we said this is a turnaround. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think we said where we need to get to in 3 years. I think to some extent, 2019 is sort of a year of transition. You know, we're dealing with the consequences of last year, and we're dealing with laying the foundations or continuing to lay the foundations of what we want to do in the future. I think coming out of, you know, we had our strategy update December 11th. I think the good thing about that is now, from now on, we know where we're going. And, you know, we can be clear about what we want to do. So, you know, sort of that was, I think, an important point in kind of where we are. And, you know, 2019 is sort of a foundational year, if you like.
Yeah. Who looks after you on the tough days? Do you have coaches, mentors? If Theresa May has Philip with the baked beans and the scotch, what's your equivalent?
I have lots of very, very supportive colleagues, actually. And family, so, yeah, you know.
What does Sinead think of all of this?
She probably thinks I'm mad, but anyway.
And
That's my wife, by the way, for those of you that don't exactly know, or anyone else.
But what would be your equivalent? What if you were getting back from a long flight, getting back from a long or difficult day? What's the best way to soothe you?
I'm not a great believer in, like, burdening my family with all the problems of work, or sort of bottling it up, or opening the bottle to compensate either, although I do tend to do that from time to time. No, I think, you know, I think that a problem shared is a problem halved. So, you know, between, you know, Andrew and Chris Wade and Lindsay and Karen, and I don't want to call people out because they're people I won't call out who will, you know, who should be. But I think, you know, we have a really great team of people actually at WPP. And, you know, the move to sea containers actually has been, I think, a really fantastic move for us to come together, to be close to Ogilvy and Wavemaker, to be closer to our clients. The view, for those of you that see it, is amazing. On a sunny day, you know, you feel like everything is possible. So I think actually that's actually been a really good move for us culturally as well.
Now, you have Cindy joining as a non-exec. Obviously, Stephen's come in. You've got Laurent joining you as well, who I know you personally courted. What is it about these types of skills or people that you know you need around you, along with the rest of the team that, by the way, speak very, very highly of you?
Yeah, I just feel like I need people that, you know, I trust to get the job done. And I sort of feel like if I trust them to get the job done, then our clients will trust them to get the job done. And that's kind of what the business that we're in, isn't it? You know, Cindy Rose is the UK CEO of Microsoft, and she's joining the board as a non-executive director, I think in April. So, you know, I think we're going to continue to, you know, refresh the board. That's really a matter for Roberto, the chairman. And, you know, Laurent's joining as our chief growth and marketing officer. You know, I do think that WPP, we should be a bit more further on the front foot in terms of sort of marketing ourselves. You know, we're like a sort of cobbler's children. Sometimes we forget to do what we tell.
I like the new logo. That's gone down very well.
Yeah, no, I mean, Landor and Superunion, or Superunion and Landor worked on that. And I think that, you know, it's supposed to reflect, you know, I think we should be a group that people feel proud of working for. Not that we didn't feel proud of before, we did, but I think we should feel even prouder of working for. And I think that the identity should reflect, and the culture should reflect the people inside the business, if you like. Yeah. And, you know, the analogy I use is sort of LVMH, you know, people understand, you know, LVMH is a great company, it has great brands inside of it, and I think WPP should be a great company with great brands inside of it. And I think we have to get our head around the fact that there's no conflict between those two things anymore.
Understood. We've got a few minutes left, so any questions from the floor, get yourselves ready, because I'll come to you in a second just for a couple. I know Mark's got to get to the airport. Mark, just to quickly ask you, what do you need your clients to now do?
I often use them just to test ideas and test thinking, actually. You know, I was speaking to one on Friday, and you know, I actually had a conversation about budgeting and control, which for those people who work at WPP will know is a big issue. and how we can kind of create a more empowered financial culture inside the organisation where, you know, we really trust people to run the business financially. It's less controlling. So I think that, you know, clients can be a great source of advice as much as anything else.
Okay. And what do you most need your people to do right now to help support this cause, this turnaround?
I think, you know, understand where we're going, and everyone plays a part in it and a different part in it. And I think, you know, it comes back to, you know, great work will, you know, so our business, at one level our business is very simple, you know, great work, great result, happy client, you know, it's a virtuous circle. So, and I don't know that we can complicate it more than that in some ways.
Okay. Any questions from the floor before we, yes, Sarah at the front.
What, we didn't get the electronic question.
No, I can't see the Slido. I'm not sure if Slido's on. We'll see. Let's check this. Oh, is it
here
up
we
there
are.
now? Now we can see it. Okay. Oh, I'll come to the first question in a second. Please, sir. I managed to avoid him the whole session.
Thanks, Kathleen. Hi, Mark. Tim Burrows from Umbrella, which is a media and marketing website in Australia. I saw Keith Weed from Unilever speak a few days back, and he had a lot of praise for WPP and how it had reinvented its media offering, particularly Mindshare. But he then, when it came to creative, he used the I think, diplomatic phrase that it needs to reinvent its creative cutting edge.
Yeah.
I wonder what you made of that.
He also said I think, if I remember reading it, he said I was 110% right on the importance of creativity. So I think that's where I stick. You know, I think, you know, we've said we want to have the strongest brands creatively. And I think that, you know, a strong WPP helps Unilever be successful. It helps all our clients be successful. So I don't see it, you know, I may not want him to use exactly that choice of words on a public forum, but we're all on the same page in terms of what we need to do.
Okay, I'll take one from Slido because I think I have to. So the lovely Marcus Brown. Sir Martin is always very keen to be giving you advice. What advice do you have for him?
Oh, nothing really.
Okay, just double checking. What else do we have?
Group ends role is very important. I think on the second point, you know, I'm not trying to tie up clients into the WPP brand, but clients do come to WPP. That is the reality, and so you know that's what you have to face. That's what you have to face up to, because no one brand inside WPP or in any one of our in any one of our peers can solve all of a client's problems. You know, you have to have a creative agency and a media agency to start with, and then you have to work out whether you want to have digital agencies or not. So I don't think that there's a conflict between those two things, and I think actually, you know, we can be the home to the best talent and creativity, and if we do that, then we'll do what we want to do. Is the WPP model a big outdated tanker? Well, it is hard to turn, but I don't think it's outdated. I mean, I think that if you look at our results, we had very strong performance in Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, continental Europe, a very strong performance in Group M. Our public relations businesses stood out. You know, we have our challenges in North America, and the UK has been tougher, you know, naturally with Brexit. But, you know, I don't think that, you know, it's a big business. It's going to take time, but I think we have fantastic talent inside the group, and that we will get there.
Generalists or specialist experts?
You need to have both. What can we do in the short term to positively grow the WPP share price? You know, I think we can't worry too much about the share price in the short term. I think if we grow our revenue, the share price will respond. And that's what we need to do.
Is there any risk, though, Mark, with the share price fluctuating as it is, that there's a potential thought of any takeover? And as the CEO, do you have to be responsible to that, to the shareholders?
I think, you know, I think these things, you know, you see what you sort of see what happens there. But I think talking to investors, I think they're clear on what the strategy is and what we need to do. Yeah. So that's what I'm focused on doing.
Okay, absolutely.
No more questions.
They've cut us off. Mark, I know you're busy. I know we really wanted to speak to you today. One last question for you, which you haven't. I know we've never asked you before, which is, did you have a nickname at school?
No.
Oh, can we make one up for you?
Would I be stupid enough to tell you?
Mark, appreciate your company today. Good luck on your flight.
Thanks very much. Thanks
all right,
a lot.
thank you.
Thank you all.